We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. Clerk will read in the roll.
Taylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Hamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky. All members are present except for Swirsky.
At this time, we will be led in prayer by Pastor Vincent from Kingdom Nation Assemblies Ministries. Immediately following our prayer, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Amobian. Pastor Vincent.
Thank you. Gracious and eternal Father, we thank you for the opportunity to collectively seek your counsel concerning the city of Akron and for its leaders who will yield to your divine will for the betterment of the citizens of the city, regardless of their economic, social, religious, or political affiliation. I'm both humbled and grateful for this opportunity to offer intercessions on behalf of the leaders and the citizens of this city. This evening, I ask that you orchestrate this meeting on tonight. I pray that the official and personal needs of the governing officers of the courts and judicial system, city council, and community advocates, law enforcement, and the mayor's cabinet be met. I pray that you crown their heads with wisdom and that your wisdom will be made manifest as they continue to lead with soundness of mind. I ask that you extend your hand of mercy and allow your healing virtue to flow throughout the city, reversing not only the spread of COVID-19, but any manner of sickness, disease, or soul issues that would adversely affect the city of Akron. I pray that you heal and make provision, grant peace and strength to stand firm in their faith as they rule with conviction and compassion and humility. Now bless this meeting and those topics, situations, and circumstances that have been placed on the table of discussion tonight. It is in the name of Christ Jesus that these petitions have been made. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Vincent.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to
To
the
the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
Republic
for
which it
which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections? Councilman Fusco,
Motion to approve.
we have a motion to approve. Can we get a second, Councilwoman Amobian?
second,
Roll call.
Taylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Hamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
aye,
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The minutes pass 12-0.
Before you, you have the consent agenda. Motion to approve. Councilman Fusco.
A motion to approve consent agenda.
Can we get a second, Councilman McKittrick?
Second.
Roll call.
Taylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Hamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
aye,
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes 12-0.
We do have one public hearing scheduled for this evening. I'm going to ask if clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, April 26, 2021, during the council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance approving the 2021 Consolidated Action Plan, Annual Action Plan.
Thank you so much. Who's presenting on this evening?
That will be me, Kurt Mulhauser.
Okay, Kurt, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. The City of Akron's 2021 Annual Consolidated Action Plan prioritizes Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development spending for 2021. A total of approximately $8.4 million is budgeted to carry out the 2021 annual plan. Funding essentially stayed the same from 2020. 2021 plan has among its recommendations the following key initiatives: continuing to support the rehabilitation of existing housing, improvements to public parks, new housing construction, infrastructure improvements, and the removal of deteriorated housing. Emphasizing business development opportunities, primarily focusing on Great Street Akron program areas. Continuing support of nonprofit community housing development organizations, supporting minor home repair programs operated by the City of Akron and Rebuilding Together, providing funding to assist in the operation of local emergency and transitional shelters, supporting public services programs, supporting community gardening programs. The consolidated strategy includes a narrative describing the housing needs of low-income families, homeless families, and others with special needs who require supportive services. The Consolidated Action Plan includes a one-year budget for applying available resources to the needs identified. The Department of Planning and Urban Development recommends approval of the 2021 Consolidated Action Plan for the city's Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, and Emergency Solutions Block Grant programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We didn't have anyone signed up to speak this evening in favor or against this ordinance, so we'll turn it over to Councilman Busco.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull the committee to place this item on the consent agenda. Kamer,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
Samples.
Aye.
Thank you. The wishes of the committee is to place that item on the consent agenda. We are awaiting some information though, which we should be receiving sometime this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Fusco. This item will be placed on the consent agenda. What is your pleasure on the rest of the agenda?
We'd like to take time on 2 through and including 6. And unfortunately, we must file item number 7 as it was withdrawn by the petitioner. And then we will take time on the balance.
Time will be granted. We'll continue with our old business, housing and neighborhood assistance. Councilman Fusco,
Time on the agenda.
time will be granted. That concludes old business. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Councilman Fusco, Councilman Malik, and Councilwoman Connor. Resolution urging the citizens of Akron to vote yes on issue 10, the Akron Summit County Public Library Renewal Levy at the May 4th, 2021 primary election to support the valuable and essential services the library offers to the greater Akron community and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. The report of the committee is favorable and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you, Director Pam Hickson. Stevenson was with us this afternoon during the Rules Committee meeting of Akron City Council. We had voted unanimously, hoping for a unanimous vote this evening in support of issue 10. This is simply a renewal. And as we know, and those of us that go to the library often, the amount of programs that they offer, and it does, I think it truly touches from the old to the young, from the rich to the poor, you know, all across the spectrum of Akron and Summit County, of course. This is a valuable asset, fortunate that we have such a great system within our county. And so we're asking for the voters of Akron to approve this, and hopefully countywide as well.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. I do see Councilman Malik's hand.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion for mayor and council as a whole.
So we do have a motion on the floor for mayor and council as a whole. Councilman Neal, I did see your hand. Were you going to make the same motion?
No, ma'am. I was just calling to raise my hand and say, as I mentioned earlier this afternoon, I definitely support this library as a huge asset to our community. But because of our laws, ethics laws, if you do business with someone, you can't vote. So I'm not able to vote on this because of that reason. That's the only reason why I will be abstaining from this vote.
Thank you so much, Councilman Mill, for sharing that with us. So we do have a motion on the floor for mayor and council as a whole. Can we get a second? Councilwoman Baylor,
Second.
roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Hamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Mallet,
Aye.
Neal,
Same.
Amobian,
Sorry. Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 11-0 with one abstention by Neal. Item number 2, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 280 Selden Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
For an advertised for a public hearing to be held May 10th.
Item number 3, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place a rooftop sign at 1670 Firestone Parkway and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
For an advertised for a public hearing to be held May 10th.
This item will also be referred.
Item number 4, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to expand a scrap and salvage business at 655 West Wilbert Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
For an advertised for a public hearing to be held May 17th.
This item will also be referred.
Item number 5, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a soccer field on the south side of West Dartmoor Avenue and the terminus of Sycamore Street and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
And advertised for a public hearing to be held May 17th.
This item will be referred.
Item number 6, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to expand a construction yard and build an addition at 31 East Lodge Street and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Refer and advertise for public hearing on May 17th.
This item will also be referred.
Item number 7, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a car wash at 497 East Waterloo Road and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
And advertise for public hearing on May 24th.
This item will be referred.
Item number 8, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept title and ownership of real property located on First Street from the state of Ohio and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 9, offered by Fusco and Kamer, ordinance authorizing the purchase of 2074 South Main Street, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into related agreements and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 10, offered by Fusco, ordinance approving the addition of property located in Copley Township, Summit County parcel number 1508514 to the Copley Akron Joint Economic Development District, authorizing the mayor or his designee to amend the Copley Akron debt agreement to include Summit County parcel number 1508514 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Number 11, offered by Fusco, ordinance approving the addition of property located in Coventry Township, Summit County parcel number 1902508 to the Coventry Akron Joint Economic Development District, authorizing the mayor or his designee to amend the Coventry Akron Jet Agreement to include Summit County parcel number 1902508 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 12, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the mayor to implement the temporary summer patio program, approving the guidelines for the temporary summer patio program permit and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
For.
This item will be referred.
Item number 13, offered by Samples, ordinance ratifying the actions of the Director of Public Service in contracting Samarios for the emergency repairs of the Cascade parking deck, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee is requesting consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 14, offered by Samples, resolution declaring it necessary to improve various off-street parking facilities in the Kenmore Business District and the Canton Road Business District by sealing, resurfacing, and repairing, painting parking space stripes, sweeping, removing snow, cleaning sewer openings, providing lawn, turf, shrub, and tree maintenance, litter, and other general cleanup, and otherwise improving and maintaining the same, and all in when and where necessary, and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 15, offered by Councilwoman Samples, resolution supporting HR 1280, known as the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021, and urging its passage by the U.S. Senate and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is to place this item on the consent agenda, please. Or I'm sorry, I apologize. Time.
thank you. Thank you. Time will be granted. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period, and our clerk will play in comments received for this evening.
Yes, good morning. My name is Ron Levitt, and I own a company called Rent Smart. My building is 576 Carroll Street here in Akron and Middlebury. And I just wanted to share my views about all the legislation which is not favorable to landlords. I happen to be in the business many years, and I'm a respectable landlord. I am not a slum landlord. My building at Carroll Street, I have stuck a small fortune in the building, updating it and upgrading it. And I like to think between the lots of Middlebury there that I have enhanced the neighborhood. I just wanted to say that, the business has been very tough. Getting good tenants is even harder. And when there's legislation on the table to make it even harder for good landlords to do business, I have expenses. I did a large amount of investments. I pay huge amount of taxes for a big building like that, and I just don't understand why we're always the bad ones. And that's not the case 100%. Yeah, there are some bad landlords, I would agree, but I and many others are not, and we keep up our properties and investments and pay our taxes. So it's very important that we do get our rents. We have our expenses and commitments. So, anything that comes along the pike that is not favorable to landlords, I mean, it's bad enough that we seem to be always guilty till be proven innocent. And we have deadbeat people in our buildings, which has nothing to do with COVID or unemployment. They just don't pay. They're deadbeats, and they go from one to the other. So, the only thing they do is destroy the property, and then we have to stick thousands more into it. We should be able to evict those people at any time. And not have to go through this long, dreary process of evictions too. It costs us unnecessary money. And I would sure like the council to know that, instead of doing something negative, let's do something positive for those that pay these taxes and keep people employed and try to make a business, an honest business out of being a landlord. Thank you. Again, my name's Ron Levitt, and if you'd like to reach me, I'm at 330-608-1938. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Diane K. Nichols. Our rental property is at 1057 Big Falls Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44333. I have comments on the upcoming rental legislation for Akron. We are longtime owners of a rental property in the North Hill area. We have been a private rental with the help of a management team. We wish to remain private, having witnessed the damage caused by uncaring, destructive Section 8 renters in that neighborhood. We feel participation should be voluntary. Pay-to-stay legislation is fine with us. The longer we can keep a conscientious renter, the better. We will not submit to a mandatory voucher program. We will sell at a loss or simply walk away, as so many of our neighbors have. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Jerry Kakish, 540 Stratford, Akron, Ohio, 44303. I highly object to forcing us to do something we do not. That should be a personal choice. We're getting beat up as it is, chasing people for rent. It's too easy for people not to work and for us not to get paid. All we're doing is trying to live life and put food on our plate. In every turn, people are beating us up. It's not worth the money to be a property manager or a landlord or a owner of a rental now. And you want to make it even harder by making us and forcing us to do Section 8 and accepting late rent? That is our choice. I do not want to rent to Section 8. There's too much going on with it, too much oversight. And that is my decision and my choice. It shouldn't be your choice. We're getting beat up over here. We were getting beat up before the pandemic, and now we're getting slaughtered over it. It's ridiculous. This should be our choice, the owner of the property's choice, the property manager's choice. This is not your interjecting and saying, we're going to make you. This is ridiculous. This is overreach and beyond. I highly object. You got to understand where we're coming from. We're trying to put food on our plate, and we're not. We're chasing people for rent now. And people got 55-inch TVs all over their house, but they can't pay their rent for 4 or 5, 6 months. I mean, it is literally ridiculous. And now you're trying to force us to accept Section 8 if we don't want to. That makes absolutely no sense. And you guys know it too.
My name is Beth Rogers, and my address is 3062 Shelley Lynn Drive, Fairlawn, Ohio. Dear Council President Somerville and members of Council, again, my name is Beth Rogers, and I am the 2021 President of the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors. Our association covers Cuyahoga, Summit, and Portage counties. We have more than 6,000 members that live, work, and play in Northeast Ohio. We care about our communities and want to ensure we have safe, healthy, and thriving neighborhoods everywhere. I am a resident of Fairlawn and am a residential housing provider in addition to being a realtor. I am in my 33rd year. I am very familiar with Akron and its real estate market needs, challenges, and benefits. I am commenting today on the source of income legislation before Council and would like to urge a no vote when the time comes. As a representative of ACAR, I cannot stress enough how important Akron is to our membership and our association. We have supported placemaking efforts to boost up our neighborhoods, commissioned a housing affordability study to look at the challenges facing renters living in Akron. We would love to see the city strengthen its down payment assistance program or develop other tools to bolster home ownership among our residents. We are your partner. However, we do not support the proposed source of income legislation as written. Of the items listed as a source of income, the only one ACAR is opposed to is the voucher program. Although it is a great program providing housing assistance to those in need, ACAR does not believe local governments should mandate participation in a voluntary federal program. It is the only item listed that comes with rental regulations outside of the normal rental agreement. Again, I urge Council to vote no on this ordinance as written. Let's work together to incentivize participation and encourage HUD to streamline the approval process. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration on this issue.
Good morning. My name is Nazik Kakish Fisher, and I am a resident of Summit County. I reside at 660 Delaware Avenue, Akron, Ohio. As a resident of Summit County and a landlord, I have numerous properties in West Akron and Copley. I am calling to express my concern. As a landlord, I have a right to not rent my property to somebody who smokes or somebody who has animals, just due to health concerns and health issues. Just as I have a right as a landlord and a taxpayer and a member of Summit County, and as a member of the rental property community, to not provide and participate in the Section 8 housing program. That's something that I personally choose. I just hope that the mayor of Akron and city council and all others involved don't turn this into a political issue. It's not a political issue. As a registered Democrat, there are issues that I have with regards to being forced to participate in Section 8 housing. If I choose to participate, I have that right. But if I choose not to participate, I also have that right. I don't feel like my rights are properly protected by being forced to rent to somebody or participate in a program that I choose not to. I think the city of Akron needs to be creative and find other ways, just like Mayor Horgan was creative in this tax abatement, which I think will end up hindering Summit County in the long run. But there are other ways and other means of doing this, and it's not to penalize the landlords and the individuals that actually pay taxes to Summit County, not only as residents, but as property owners. I don't feel like I should be penalized, regardless of choices that you guys make or things that you guys plan on changing or tweaking or adding or whatever it may be. So if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. You can reach me at 330-414-7377. But those are the concerns that I would like expressed and addressed at the council meeting that you guys have, I believe, today. Thank you for your time. Take care. Bye.
Hi, my name is Donald Pickering. I live at 1230 Swartz Road, Akron, Ohio, 44306. I have rentals in Akron. I've been in the business for over 30 years. I understand you're trying to pass a law or a rule that landlords have to rent to people on Section 8. I am totally against that. It should be the homeowner's choice if they wish to rent to tenants or people like that elects to stay on that program. I am totally against it. I also understand you're trying to pass something about late fees that you have to accept them now. There again, I'm totally against that because the courts has thrown my stuff out of courts for evictions because I've accepted late fees and I had to refile it to get the people out. I just feel like if they can't pay, they can't stay. And the magistrates need to just put the people out. A lot of these people that's on Section 8, they're able to work. Let them get a job, take care of themselves, and have respect for themselves. I had to work my whole life. It won't hurt them. Like I say, just work with the landlords, and maybe some the people on Section 8 will understand that they got to start taking care of themselves and quit sitting around asking for free money and waiting for a check to come in. Like I said, I'm just totally against this. You're making people accept Section 8. That's all I'd like to say. I hope you take consideration in this matter. One other thing, something about water bills. You can't take a deposit for water bills. I don't understand that. If they run the water bill out of proportion, the homeowner has to pay it. And a lot of tenants, they don't. They just feel like they should get a free ride on the water bill. And the water bill's high in Akron right now. It's always been high in Akron. So I hope you don't change that law or ruling. This work with us. I appreciate it. Just work with the landlords, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Yes, my name is Musa Kakish, address 364 West Bowery Street in Akron. I'm calling to voice my objection to this proposal that you are considering. As a landlord, I do not and will not accept them mandating that I have to do a certain thing. They're my properties, and I understand where you are thinking for the Section 8, but we must, as a city council, you guys and the city can bring together money and build whatever is required. And I'm again voicing my objection to this, and hopefully you will reconsider or consider my thoughts. Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, my name's Barbara Snyder. I own Snyder and Snyder Real Estate and Property Management at 36 South Maple Street in Akron. I represent about 75 landlords, all of which own properties in the city of Akron. And I can tell you that most of them, if not all, would object to the legislation that is being proposed, because it infringes on their rights to do with their properties what they want to do with them. It's a private property right situation. The source of income in itself is a good idea. However, it isn't just the source of income that one needs to consider. It's the restrictions that AMHA puts on a landlord in order to rent a property through the voucher or Section 8 program that is objectionable. Landlords don't need to take whatever rent they decide that should be paid, because they dictate the amount of rent, and they also dictate the condition of the property. So if a landlord does not want to replace all of their old windows because they have lead, then they should not have to do that. And that would be an AMHA requirement. So therefore, it is too restrictive on landlords and should not be imposed. Also, as far as the rent payback, if a landlord wants to get rid of a tenant just because they're problematic and they use the method of non-payment of rent to do so, then they should be allowed to let the tenant go. This, again, sometimes is the easiest way to go through an eviction process through non-payment of rent. It's quicker and easier, rather than trying to cite specific lease violations that a tenant may have breached. So therefore, a lot of landlords use non-payment of rent as an easy eviction route. So if a tenant did come to the court and had all of their money, the landlord should not be required to let that tenant stay. So if anyone has any questions about my remarks, my office phone number is 330-434-4343. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council President Somerville and members of Council. My name is Sandy Narragon, and I am the CEO of the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors, known as ACAR. Our office is located at 9100 South Hills Boulevard, and that's Suite 150 in Broadview Heights. We have about 6,500 real estate professional members throughout Cuyahoga, Summit, and Portage counties, including many that live and work in Akron. Today, I'm commenting on source of income legislation that's coming before Council and the Committee on Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, and I'm urging a no vote. First, let me acknowledge that ACAR recognizes how important access to affordable housing is. ACAR agrees that the Housing Choice Voucher Program is valuable and a much-needed resource. When source of income is discussed, as you all know, the focus is generally on participating in the program. Although the voucher program is a good one, ACAR doesn't believe local government should mandate participating in it, since it's a voluntary federal program. We hear from our members over and over again that it's the strings that come along with participating in the program that's the deterrent for them to participate, and for many rental homeowners. Instead, let's focus on efforts to improve the program, to encourage more participation by housing providers. So again, we urge a no vote on the ordinance as written. Rather than mandating participation in a voluntary federal program, let's direct our collaborative efforts to focus on addressing disincentives to participate, or even develop ways to incentivize participation in Akron. Please know that ACAR stands ready to assist the city with the development of incentives and is your resource on all real estate related matters impacting private property rights and more. I thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration that you're giving this issue. Thank you.
My name is Eric Babb from Elmwood Street in Cuyahoga Falls. I have one rental in Akron on Cypress Avenue. I'm calling to ask you not to change any rules making it tougher on landlords. You guys already are a lot tougher than Cuyahoga Falls. You guys leave landlords 100% responsible for all utilities they don't pay. You also charge us a rental registry fee every year. Cuyahoga Falls does neither of these. They actually take over all the utilities, and they are the tenant is 100% responsible. To force us to take housing vouchers is unfair. It's a whole other system. You have to follow different guidelines. You have to get approved to be a Section 8 and whatnot. It's just it's hard enough being a landlord in Akron currently. To make it more difficult, we are the ones who are fixing up our homes, keeping them up to code, and not having them foreclosed upon. So please do not vote for more restrictions on landlords in Akron. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deborah Perkins. My address is 1189 Ashwood Road in Akron. I'm calling in reference to your proposal. I currently own 12 rental properties in the city of Akron. First, regarding the state of pay to stay, we as landlords have to take our time to file the eviction and attend the hearings. If the tenants haven't been able to work things out with me prior to the hearing, they should not be allowed to stay. We as landlords, an eviction is a last resort because it is so cumbersome and it's such a time-consuming process. We get no reimbursement for this process either. You are also proposing regulating my late fee charge. How is it the city thinks it is their decision to decide what I, as a private homeowner, am allowed to charge for a late fee? My average rent is $8.50, so a $25 late fee is not a real discouragement to pay the rent on time. Second, I am very opposed to the source of income as a protected property class as you're proposing. The local government should not, under any circumstance, be mandating that I, as a private property owner, participate in any voluntary federal program, such as the housing choice vouchers. That means you're requiring me to give up my private property rights, which I fight for every day as a licensed real estate agent in Ohio. There are additional regulatory requirements under the Housing Choice Voucher Program that, in my past experience with the program on one of my properties, the AMHA inspectors came for the original inspection. Then they had a second re-inspect rechecker. While the approval of the applicant took more than a month, the home stood vacant to get all the approvals to rent to the voucher holder. Also, the voucher amount varies by zip code and does not provide for fair market rent collection. The voucher amount is not based on the overall condition of the property. All of my homes are updated and very well maintained, and I would receive the same voucher amount versus a property owner on a home that is not cared for or updated. This would be a completely unfair requirement to me as an investor in the Akron community. If this proposal passes, it could cause many investors to simply sell their properties, making affordable housing even less available to anyone looking to rent in the Akron area, irregardless of someone trying to use a housing choice voucher program. I'm very opposed to both of these ordinances passing.
Hello, can you please use this current message as opposed to the previous one, as this one I believe will be more clear. Good evening, Council President Somerville and members of City Council. My name is Candace Eberhardt, and I reside at 1300 Culpeper Drive, 3B as in boy, Akron, Ohio, 44313. I am the 2021 President-elect for the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors, also known as ACAR. Our more than 6,000 members represent much of Northeast Ohio, in particular Cuyahoga, Summit, and Portage counties. Like all of you, we care about our communities and want to ensure we have thriving neighborhoods everywhere. I am proud to live here in Akron, am the broker and owner of Eberhardt Realty and Management, and I am a rental housing provider. I know Akron. This is my home. I am commenting today on the source of income legislation before Council, and am asking you to vote no on making source of income a protected class. We know that if passed, this ordinance would essentially mandate rental home owners participate in the Voluntary Housing Choice Voucher Program. While this is a wonderful program for so many families, it should be up to the housing provider taking on the risk and requirements whether or not they want to participate in this federal program. I am speaking to you as an African American minority landlord. Previously, I have rented to tenants using the Housing Choice Voucher Program who caused thousands of dollars of damage to my property. One tenant was white, the other was black. My views are not discriminatory in nature, but are based on my own personal experiences. The tenant's needs as far as housing is concerned is an absolute priority, in addition to the rights of the landlords and or housing providers. I feel there needs to be changes made across the board in order to establish a better relationship between the tenants and the landlords who do choose to participate in the program. Certain protections for the landlords also need to be put in place to make us more comfortable with renting to tenants who participate in the program. Until then, we need to be allowed to exercise our right to choose who we rent to. Again, I urge Council to vote no on this ordinance as written. Housing providers should have the choice as to whether or not they want to take on participation in the program. Let's work together to incentivize participation and encourage HUD to streamline the approval process to benefit both owners and tenants. Thank you for your time and careful consideration on this issue.
Hello, my name is Martha Belden, and the address is 49 Mall Avenue in Akron, Ohio. And I am calling to protest the proposed changes for landlords regarding pay to stay, and also Section 8, accepting the Section 8 vouchers. I feel like we've lost sight of the fact that there are, landlords have financial obligations themselves, and if we're looking at issues regarding affordable housing, we need to look at that elsewhere other than dictating what a landlord can or can't do. So I think that we've gone too far on this, and I would appreciate you reconsidering. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nick Casiopo calling from Ward 1, 41 Marshall Avenue. Good evening. Just like to address a few things. First off, I definitely support the two pieces of legislation being proposed that would help curb the rate of evictions in the city of Akron. The source of income legislation and the pay to stay legislation, I think, are great bills for the most part, and are definitely what City Council, I think, should be spending its time dealing with. I do want to point out, though, that the pandemic has been raging for over a year now, and that's a year filled with evictions. Akron still has the highest rate of evictions of any major city in the entire state of Ohio. And over the last year, hundreds of people have been evicted. Hundreds more people are now couch surfing or housing insecure or are just houseless living on the streets. And so as you're, mulling over this legislation, I would like you to, one, recognize the urgency of this legislation, try to get it passed as quickly as possible, and also recognize that it's too late for a lot of folks, and City Council really needs to step up and figure out how they're going to deal with the folks who have already been evicted or have already, already living on the streets or on their relatives' couches or in cars, what have you. This is the start, but it's definitely not the end. Additionally, I think council would do well to consider some serious rent control laws. Because the major problem is that people are just being priced out of their homes, whether they're homeowners, or they're renters. Rent just keeps rising. It's partly due to the discriminatory tax abatement, rising property values that's pushing everything up for everyone, even though wages, salaries are stagnant and don't rise with the cost of living around the city. So I think council should definitely consider some rent control laws. And again, revisiting the tax abatement, super discriminatory. It's perpetuating, redlining and disinvestment in certain communities over, investment in super wealthy white neighborhoods. So definitely should revisit that. Of course, work with Serve People Akron, and we have a list of demands, and we want to keep pressuring y'all to kind of take a look at those. We appreciate the dumpsters that have been set up at a few encampments, but there are many more encampments around the city of Akron that need those same sanitation services. Additionally, folks don't need just trash service. People need fresh water. People need transportation, some free.
Greetings to members of City Council, members of the mayor's staff who may be present. This is Stephen Muhammad. I reside at 305 Alden Avenue. I serve as minister over Muhammad's Mosque, located here in the city of Akron. Wanted to call and voice my hope that you'll find H.R. 1280, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, favorable, as it is soon up for discussion. Hopefully we'll get the mayor's signature. As many of you know, there are several discussions going on right now as it relates to policing. We always remind folks that attitudes harden into beliefs, and beliefs become laws. The laws themselves, as we change policy, hopefully will do a similar service as it relates to how we think our attitudes. That proves to be the greatest challenge that we face right now, one that I'm not sure we will successfully transcend. However, this offering of H.R. 1280 may be a starting point, as it does offer an opportunity for transparency and standards that are more user-friendly when that officer has that encounter on the street. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear my few words, and God willing, we'll talk with each other soon.
Hello, my name is Beth Field. I live at 1111 Cary Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44314. And I am the COO and Director of Programming for the Big Love Network. I am calling in support of pay to stay and source of income legislation. Source of income is obviously a much needed step in order to continue to desegregate the city. It is key and important for us to live with people of all different classes and all different races within every neighborhood throughout the city. I currently live in Kenmore and am here because of Kenmore Neighborhood Alliance's efforts to create an inclusive neighborhood for the first time in their history. And I think it's important that as a city, we make such investments through our policy decisions. The more diverse neighborhoods that we have, the more that people across the board thrive. Pay to stay legislation seems like a very basic piece of legislation that we can pass in order to help fix our eviction rate in the city, which is 24th worst in the nation and the worst in the state. These are just two pieces of legislation of what I hope becomes a larger ecosystem around talking about urban planning, development, and housing, and creating a more equitable and just community through our resources that we have and the resources that we hope to grow. We have one of the most representative freshwater sources in the country here in Northeast Ohio, and our population is bound to grow. But many studies have been done over the last 25 years to show that the cities that grow the most are the ones that really take care of their people and the resources that they have. And we have a unique opportunity to do that here. And I hope that we, through passing progressive legislation, can really help move this city forward in a way that not only grows the city for certain types of people, but grows the city for everyone by creating a community that really cares for itself with the materials and the resources that we have. We have an awesome opportunity to do that right now, and I hope that we continue to move down this path. Again, we are here. The Big Love Network is here to talk through any environmental health policy that can really help us move forward to a brighter.
Hello, my name is Linda McAloney, 691 Kensington Way, Copley, Ohio 44321. I'm calling in about the requirement of renting to Section 8 applicants. I have done this in the past. I own 7 duplexes and 2 houses in the Akron and Copley area, and I am definitely opposed to being forced to rent to Section 8 tenants, and my experience has not been negative as far as the tenants are concerned, but dealing with AMHA has been a very large time suck and headache for me and many other landlords that I know. I was just actually on the phone with a few of them, and they'll be calling in also. The requirements are fine. I keep very nice properties, and they are always clean and kept in excellent condition. It seems that after every inspection, no matter what it is, whether it's a loose doorknob, a missing battery out of a smoke detector, or a scuff in the floor, or paint, or whatever it is, it seems to be that there's a failure every time that I do it, and then you have to go back, and you have to, it's a terrible time. Waste of time for me. So I feel that it's a failure almost every time under the most ridiculous circumstances often. The tenants have not been a problem. I do not think that as a landlord I should be forced to do business with a third party that I do not have good experience with. I don't think it's American. I don't think I should have to do it. And I realize that there are people on the waiting list for AMHA, and that's probably why this is coming up. But just from the 3 landlords that I've talked to in the city of Akron, which represent about 150 units, each one of us has accepted AMHA in the past and will not do it anymore because of AMHA and how ridiculous that is about getting failed every time, no matter what. So I hope you'll take this into consideration and vote no on forcing landlords to rent to AMHA. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shannon Jackson. I reside at 4028 Vera Road in Stowe, Ohio, 44224. And I was just calling in support of my pay to stay legislation. I think that it would be wonderful if we could not discriminate against people on programs or housing vouchers with getting rent pay, still affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and illness due to pregnancy. I just wanted to express my support in it and pray that we are able to still keep our homes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vaughn Morrison. I live at 283 Crosby Street, Akron, Ohio, 44303. My phone number is 330-472-4028. I'm calling because I object to this that's being brought before the council. I dealt with the Department of Housing Choice Voucher Program and was very dissatisfied with them. not with the tenant, but with the Section 8 people, AMHA. I don't want somebody dictating to me what I'm allowed to charge for rent. I feel that I should be able to charge whatever I choose on my property. What repairs they want me to make on the property to make it acceptable for AMHA, who's going to pay for all of those repairs or whatever they deem necessary to make it acceptable for AMHA. They also require a 6-month inspection, which they are required to find something that needs to be replaced or repaired. I asked them why this was, and they told me it was because that way they can check up on their people and they know that they have actually been to that property. And also, if they do damage the property, the tenant has no money to pay for repairing it or replacing things that need repaired. They have no skin in the game, and AMHA says they are not responsible for any damages. And you can't try and collect on someone who is on assistance. They have no money, or they wouldn't be on assistance. I do believe that this is a violation of my private property rights, and I really think it's unfair that this is being brought up at this time when people cannot come in and speak. If anything, this should get tabled until you can have people come in. This is also not an incentive for anybody who is on assistance, because why would they can live in any neighborhood they want then. Why would they aspire to ever get off of Section 8 and aspire to buy a house when they could rent whatever they want for? Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please contact me. I do have 22 rentals in the Highland Square, West Hill area, and I'm very concerned for the neighborhood. Thank you.
I'm Bill Nesbitt, 330, address 115 our box at our High Street location. I'll have a great 2021.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Figueroa. My address is 1725 Redwood Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44301. And I am calling today to once again ask Council to pass the pay-to-stay legislation and the source of income protection legislation. Thank you.
Hi, this is Fatima Rita, 967 Concord, Akron, Ohio. I'm calling to voice some ideas on what you're proposing here. First of all, I tried sending some comments to your email, and they kept saying it wasn't working and did not accept it, so I'm a little disappointed. I had some things I wanted to email you, so I need to find out if I did the right thing or not. Also, I do not feel that Section 8 or source of income should be a protected class. Section 8 has too many rules to make it mandated for everybody. At this moment, I want to make all my leases month to month. Section 8 will not let you start out with a month-to-month lease. If something goes wrong, I want to be able to give a 30-day notice and not have to worry about evicting people. I'm also concerned, how are you going to regulate if a house doesn't pass? And the owner cannot have a certain kind of lease with Section 8. I'm very disappointed that the City of Akron does not allow the tenants to be responsible for the water bill. Section 8 will not let you collect a water deposit. So if the tenant doesn't pay, it comes back on the owner, whether you're Section 8 or not. And I think Section 8 has things that just are not good for all houses. They're good for some houses. I have several Section 8 tenants, and they are not paying their part of the rent, and that is not guaranteed. Section 8 rent might be guaranteed, but the Section 8 tenant's personal rent may not be guaranteed. Also, source of income bothers me too here, because I've had some people that want to rent from me, and they're collecting unemployment and collecting and working. So you don't know about that, then just on a funny note, what if somebody's source of income is something illegal? Do I have to accept that? I don't want some drug dealing people saying, well, I'm making $5,000 a month here and it's all from some illegal source here. Also, I do not agree with the pay to stay agreement. It should be up to the owner of the property to decide if they wish to accept the rent or not. It's not right that I have to accept what the court says. I think that could be unconstitutional. That should be my house, my decision, whether I accept the rent or not. And if I want to accept, the CARES money. And just on a side note, I just had 2 hearings today, and I did get a nice amount of money from the CARES, which is good. But anyways, I just want to say I object to making it mandated for taking Section 8. Source of income should not be protected, and it's up to the owner to accept late rent or not if an eviction is held and the court.
Hi, my name is Doug Stern. I own a property at 695 Blaine Avenue in Akron, and I'm calling regarding the rental legislation that's being proposed right now. I'm especially concerned with the mandate, the requirement that we'd have to take any source of income, and that we've considered taking, for example, Section 8, but have determined that because of the onerous, there are lots of, it's almost hostile toward a landlord, if you want to call us that, a housing provider, to provide it. So the costs become too high for us. And if that's the case, we have to make a choice. We're a small business. I mean, that's a small business, if you want to even call it that. But we would have to follow suit with what many other people like ourselves, mom and pop business housing providers, and that is sell. And what will be the net effect is the opposite of what you want. You'll have less housing available for Section 8. You'll have less housing available for everybody, and the cost of that housing is going to go up. So, at a certain time, at a certain point, maybe down the road, we would take that. And there are people who are very happy to take Section 8, and we should let those people who are good at navigating that system, which we are not, and we can't make money doing it, we should let them do that and do it well. If there are other programs that you want to provide to help people like us navigate that or provide incentives and cover risks then that are associated with it, then that would be helpful too. Again, my name's Doug Stern. I own a property in North Hill, and I hope you'll consider that. As far as the other piece of it, as far as pay to stay, I think I'm not for it. I'm not as against it, but the reality is as somebody who provides housing, you want people to pay on time and not be forced by a court to pay up. And that becomes an arduous process that, again, is a cost that is hard to bear as a small, if you want to call it, business owner, as a housing provider. If you have questions, please let me know. Thank you.
My name is April Stern, 642 Dayton. I spent today fixing a leaky faucet, unclogging a stopped-up wash tub, setting rat traps, and fixing a torn screen in one of my rentals. I don't have a lot of them. I saved for 15 years to buy my first one. I can tell you that when I rent a property, I'm giving the resident complete access to a property that might be worth $100,000 and that they can do $20,000 of damage to in 10 minutes. That's not covered by insurance. My only protection as a housing provider is to screen for tenants that are collectible and can be held responsible for the damage that they do. If the City of Akron requires housing providers to assume the risk of tenants who can't be held responsible because they don't have any money, then my only recourse as a housing provider is to increase rents to cover that additional risk and cost. My concern is this ordinance will only make rentals less affordable for the people that need an affordable, safe place to live. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Thomas. I currently live at 1442 Hillside Terrace in Akron, Ohio. My comments on the pay to stay and the Section 8 as a protected class legislation being discussed this week. I believe for the first thing, the pay to stay, I think it's a good step in the right direction. But I feel like there need to be some more discussions or some more committees to come together and look at some of the details that will go into that. I don't think it's as simple as just extending it or giving the tenant more time to come up with the money to pay the landlord when landlords, just like the tenants, are probably experiencing, a loss in income and a loss in jobs or what may have you. So to put the onus on the current landlord to sit around and wait while some of this legislation gets, hammered out and passed through, and then the money finally comes to the tenant to pay the landlord back, they're just putting more time on the landlord to go without. So if there could be some immediate type of relief to the landlords currently who have tenants in their rentals who haven't been paying rent during the duration of this pandemic, I feel like we should try to reach out more so to the landlords to help them out as far as like the loss of income, as well as we should be looking out for the renter. I feel like going forward, we should look into some more programs to combat these eviction crises with more affordable housing and more affordable ways for, current renters or people who rent to become homeowners here in Akron through programs utilizing some of the money that the city is getting through the last coronavirus relief package. That's just my opinion on that one. As far as the Section 8 being a protected class, I feel like that's another step in the right direction, and I'll kind of piggyback off my last comment as far as figuring out alternative ways to help these people who are, on Section 8 and things of that nature to utilize that program and to come off that program in hopes of actually becoming a homeowner and not utilizing those subsidies to rent homes anymore. So I feel like we should look into ways to better educate the tenants who are on Section 8 and better prepare them to become homeowners utilizing some of the programs already offered here in the Akron area, whether it be the Mustard Seed or the Well CDC or all the other housing authorities or community development corporations that we have here in Akron.
Hi, my name is Chris Campbell. I'm calling on behalf of Conduit Properties, P.O. Box 13432, Fairlawn, Ohio 44334. I appreciate the time, Council, and the reason I'm calling is to just express some concern about the direction and trajectory where we are heading as a city when it comes to justice and equity in terms of rents and the rental system. We own a number of properties in Akron. We're a very small company, but I will tell you that we own about 25 units in the city, and I've always loved working in Akron. I really enjoy the city. I enjoy the people that we work with. I enjoy our tenants. We have really good relationships with most of our tenants, and we really strive for equity and justice in what we do, to treat others as we would have as we'd like to be treated. And we just communicate that to everyone on our team and within our tenants as well. And I will say that in the last year, we've seen some concerning things. This is an aside, but we've seen tax increases of 100% on properties in the last year. There was one last year, and then there's one this year too, and it is because the school board actively sued over the valuation of properties, which I find egregious in a system like ours. We have had magistrates who have actively rejected the rule of law in eviction hearings, and we've reminded them respectfully of that law, of Ohio tenant law and the national tenant law, and they've thrown out that due process in recent hearings. So I am concerned about the direction where we're heading, and I would encourage you to abide by the rule of law and to support legislation that upholds that. Thank you.
That concludes our public comments for this evening. We want to thank all of those who participated through the public comment process. We'll now move into our committee assignments, rules. Councilman Freeman.
2:30.
Public safety, Councilman Kamer.
12 p.m., May 3rd.
Thank you. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Neal.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
1 o'clock.
Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco.
3:15.
Public Service, Councilwoman Samples.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? I do see Councilwoman Samples.
Thank you, President Somerville. I appreciate all the residents who called in about the 2 pieces of legislation that coming through housing. However, I think that if we allow landlords to believe the sentiments that were expressed by some of the individuals on this call, I think we do ourselves and them a disservice. I think that if we could, Sarah has a list. I think we need to send them both pieces of legislation instead of them just getting on the phone and talking to people. I think they really need to understand what's in this legislation, because some of the things they said, I'm not reading it the way that they're assuming it. And I'm concerned about what they think these 2 pieces are. I didn't see anything in there where it says that a landlord is required to take AMHA or a voucher. I didn't read it like that. To me, it read as if in the print, and I think Councilman Lombardo brought this up earlier today, that they can't put it in print saying no Section 8, no AMHA vouchers accepted. It's sort of the same as, I'm trying not to get in the mud with this, but it's sort of kind of like if you put an ad in the paper, like I went through the newspaper and I'm looking to see if anybody did it, but I always remember seeing where they have it in big bold where they say no Section 8, no vouchers accepted. So what I'm reading in the legislation is stating that you can't put that in the paper. I mean, people are going to do what they want to do anyway. I know people who say they don't accept vouchers in Section 8, but then when it's somebody they know, they'll go through the steps, the necessary steps to make their properties Section 8 for people that they know. So I think we have to make sure that they actually really understand that we're talking about 2 pieces of legislation here, and one is not talking about letting someone stay in your house that's being destructive. It to me, not a lawyer, but I've worked for a whole bunch of them and a judge. To me, it says that if they have the money to pay you, you can't say you won't take it. That's the way it's reading to me. So maybe I'm wrong. If the law want to clear me up on that, but that's the way I'm reading it. So I think that we really need to see them both separate, because we're talking about 2 separate issues here. And it's like they're convoluting and putting apples and oranges together to every person who's called so they can actually read through and follow it. And I think everyone's getting caught up on thinking that if they rent this house and they're charging $1,400, that we, the city council, are going to force them to take a voucher or Section 8. And that's not how it reads to me. But we happen to have an attorney who sits on city council. Maybe he can clear it up a little bit, but I'm not reading it the way that they're expressing it in this call. And I just think that we have to make sure that those individuals get a piece of these both separate. One's Title 15 and one's Title 3. They are not the same. And I think they need to understand that. One has to do with unlawful discrimination. The other one has to do with the Environmental Housing Code. But I think they need to understand that, and I don't think a lot of them do. I mean, if they don't want to take Section 8 or a voucher, I mean, when a person puts in an application, when you go and get a rental application, unfortunately, a lot of people are going based off of other things before they even get to that part of the application. They know if they're going to accept the person or not, regardless if they have a voucher or whatever. I mean, it just says to me, you can't put it in print. Can't say no vouchers, no Section 8. It's sort of kind of like saying you don't want a veteran or somebody with a disability or somebody because of their color in your house, or saying you can't put it in print. But that's just my sentiment. I take, if I'm reading it wrong, I would like for someone to tell me I'm reading it wrong, because that's the way I've read it. That's all.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Samples. Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I just wanted to also speak to some of the comments. I think one of the themes that we heard throughout the day was that a landlord should be able to choose, right? And one resident spoke about, economics 101, and this is a market, housing market. And I agree, but I think that the next chapter in that economics 101 book is that sometimes markets don't work. And when markets don't work, we have government regulation, right? And so that's why we have regulations that prohibit discriminating on the basis of race or religion or what have you, right? Landlords were choosing not to rent to those people, and even putting restrictive covenants in deeds in homes in Akron, right? In certain neighborhoods. And so we see that in the legacy of the city, right? Where we have concentrated poverty in certain neighborhoods, right? Where we see that race is sometimes or SOI is sometimes a pretext for race, right? And also the same thing applies to standards that we already have, right? We require residents to meet a certain threshold, or we require landlords to meet a certain threshold for the quality of the buildings, right? A landlord could argue that they should be able to rent a building no matter whether it has windows or not, right? But the government says, no, the market is broken. If that's the case, we need to step in. And so this is the question of where we draw that line. And I think, to Councilwoman Samples' point, it's entirely fair to say if somebody has the money, right, then you should have to take it. And it may require participating in government program that's not perfect. And I agree that we should work to improve that process. We should work to increase landlord education and landlord and tenant education, right? I think that's something we can look at using some of this rescue plan money for. But, to say that, it should be purely landlord choice is not a reflection of how our law works before we pass this legislation. So with that, I certainly would urge that we pass it next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Malik. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the comments that were shared. I think if anything, we need to heed the concerns. I mentioned we definitely need to form a tenant landlord council. I've been doing some research. Somebody might have said this earlier. Cleveland had one, but the problem was they weren't able to sustain it. So we need to look at creating a new system, and whatever dollars we spend, make sure that they're invested so that whatever we create is sustainable. One way of making that sustainable is that we need everybody that wants to have a say in this to have some skin in the game. We've heard from those who provide housing for over half of our residents. There's a concern with AMHA. AMHA isn't here to defend themselves. We need to look at how to work with that policy. We need to work with making sure that tenants are aware of their rights. I think everybody would feel better if there was an arbitration process before they had to go to the eviction court. We collect $15 or more for every rental. Can we use some of that money to create a department that helps us work? Because whatever we due on Monday, and isn't going to. We need to have a probation period to follow it and to work on it and improve it. But housing is a big issue. I think with those professional organizations that were at the table, legal aid, AMHA, and us as a city, because we've been told that water bills are a part of a large part of the rental, that we could come up with a better position where we are right now. Because the risks are real. I mean, I'm speaking as a landlord. The risks are real. And I'll tell you this, I was sharing with Councilman Lombardo the other day. I've had tenants that have been 6 months behind. This is before the CARES Act, before COVID. But I knew they were good tenants. No landlord wants to lose a good tenant. And so we worked with them. But at the same token, we know that the housing challenge is real. But I think all those that have skin in the game need to be a part of helping us improve this legislation. So if we pass it on Monday, don't just say, oh, we passed it and ignore these comments that have been shared. We need to improve policy holistically. And if we could form a council of tenants, landlord and professional organizations, and one of our big stakeholders in AMHA, will be better for it.
Thank you so much, Councilman Neal. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you, President Somerville. I see Ms. Rose is on the line here. I'd like for the question that was posed to be answered in terms of, so the violation would just be if it's not advertised correctly, if I understand the question correctly, because I'm of the opinion that it goes above and beyond that. So I'd like to hear the response.
So the answer would be that the tenant would have to prove that the landlord discriminated against them based on their source of income. And so I think that the first way to make sure that the landlord is not discriminating is to not put it in the paper. That would be the first piece. Landlords, when you rent your home, I think that Councilman Neal has said it, when you meet someone, you build that relationship with them, you know if you want to rent to that person or not. But I think just outright saying that you're not going to rent to Section 8 in the paper is the first clue to, as Councilwoman Sample said, that is discriminatory. That is just like saying, we are not having any, I hate to take it here, but I have to because it just, the comments have been so blatant this evening, is if you put it out there, then you're discriminating. So it's saying you can only, if you're not disabled, if you're not a veteran, if you're not a single Black mom, I'll rent to you. But if you are a single Black mom, if you are a veteran, if you are disabled, and you have a Section 8 voucher, I'm not going to rent to you. And so that's basically what the legislation is, where Fair Housing wants to not have this, the Fair Housing, they don't want to have that written in the paper because it makes it really hard for people to find places. If the voucher program is, they have a waiting list. They take so long to even to be able to have the voucher, and then they take a year to even get a landlord to accept the voucher. And so that's where we are. It's not saying that they absolutely have to go through it. It's saying that they can't publicize it in the paper.
Okay, but if I understand this correctly, it goes above and beyond just the ad. Okay, and that's why I think we can discuss it next week in committee versus this time here, or we can discuss it now. But it goes above and beyond just the ad. If I'm reading correctly too. The thing of it is that this has been discussed for well over a year. We have been pressed, City Council, to move on this quickly. And so that's why me personally wanted us all to understand exactly where we're at, wanted us to take the time to go out and educate the landlords as well. And there is some confusion, granted, but I think we owe it to our constituents, we owe it to the landlords, we owe it to the future tenants, we owe it to all of us, to the residents of Akron, to make sure everyone understands exactly what is being asked, exactly what is going on here, and we need to have more discussion. But again, we have been asked to pass this and to deal with this quickly. I do like the idea of us looking at this maybe down the road. We can amend whatever we currently have proposed before us. But the other side of it too is I know some of us who have practiced in real estate, a landlord, a homeowner, what they're doing is basically measuring risk. Okay, I'm talking about economics. It's risk. You're measuring risk. And that's whenever you invest, you're trying to calculate and measure where that's at. Okay. And the thing of it is whenever you take away some of the bundle of rights, then that risk is increased. I do understand, and I believe all of us on city council here don't want to see anyone discriminated against for any reason whatsoever. I think we're all basically aiming in the same direction. It's just we all have to work together to figure out how we get there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Councilman Busco. Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, Title III, that's my understanding, agreeing with Councilwoman Samples, is that, we are just saying, and again, with Tamika Rose, as far as the advertisements go, the landlords are not allowed to discriminate and say we do not want Section 8 or AMHA. The landlord can still choose who they want after their interview process of 5 applicants. They could still choose who they want. It's just, again, my understanding is the way they go about advertising their property. So on to Title 15, the pay to stay. This has nothing to do with, there's a section in here, other causes for eviction. This piece of legislation no way limits the ability of the landlord to initiate an eviction action for reasons other than solely for non-payment of rent. So yeah, if there's other problems going on in the house or the apartment or whatever, the tenant can be evicted. So the pay to stay is all about, I guess at the end of the day, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 months down the road, if the tenant comes up with the money, the landlord, has to accept it. So again, that's my understanding. And that's the way I read this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lombardo. Councilman Malik?
Yes, Madam President. I'm sorry for speaking twice, but I do think that there is a misunderstanding. So I just want to state clearly my understanding, which I believe is correct. This would prohibit someone from discriminating against someone for not choosing them because they are a voucher holder, right? If they don't choose someone for any other reason, any other permissible reason, that's fine. But it's not just prohibiting discrimination like out loud or discrimination in the paper. It's prohibiting discrimination. So it might be hard to prove, but if there are 5 people, or say there are 2 people and they have exactly the same, qualities, and one of them is a voucher holder and one's not, right? If that person picks the non-voucher holder because they're a non-voucher holder, that is what we are making illegal, right? It may be really hard to prove that, but it's the same thing as if, there's 2 people, one's Christian and one's Jewish, and the person picks the Christian person and texts someone, I didn't pick that guy because he's Jewish, right? It may be hard to prove, but we're not just saying you can't discriminate in the paper. We're saying you can't discriminate, period. I just want to be very clear. That's how all discrimination law works. It's hard to prove, but it's saying very clearly you cannot have the purpose to discriminate on this basis.
Thank you so much, Councilman Malik, for that clarification. Councilwoman Amobian?
That's exactly what I wanted to point out, Madam President. It's not as simple as whether or not you advertise. It's basically if you deny someone and you don't have a legitimate reason to exclude or deny them your apartment, like you don't have a history that they have been terrible tenants, they haven't paid, you don't have anything to base your decision on other than the fact, and there are going to be some assumptions made, but it's just like any other fair housing or discriminatory action that people try to investigate. They will send someone else, another couple, to that same apartment. And if they have money versus a voucher and everything is equal, they're going to ask the question, why did you agree to rent to this couple versus the other person who came? And then there are assumptions that are made that there's a discriminatory allegation here. So it's not as simple as whether or not you advertise. It's basically if they can't get the apartment, they've not been bad tenants, they don't have a history of not paying, they don't have a history of having traffic following them, like drug traffic or something, they are going to make the assumption that there's something else at play here. So it is what it is. The reality is that they are trying to create a level playing field for all individuals who need housing, regardless of the source of income. Now, if you can prove that they have drug money, certainly that is something that is gonna. I would love to know how you go about proving that. But if everything is equal, and they come to you, then the question becomes, why didn't you rent to the person? So I think that's what we have to deal with. The reality of this bill is not as simple as saying, you didn't say that you didn't rent to this person because they were on welfare or had a voucher or a Section 8, whatever. It is what it is. So either we know what we're doing, and perhaps we need to have one of the lawyers from our department to come and say, here's the situation. This is what we're talking about. And these are some examples. It's not a perfect world, but we're just trying to level the playing field for people who don't have cash money and may not have a job, but they do have a source of revenue or income or something to pay for the housing. So you're talking about a whole different animal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mobian. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you, President Somerville. Again, I don't believe any one of us will tolerate discrimination in our city. And I think we all agree with that 100%. But then again, like I said, we're not certain exactly which way this whole thing fits. So we have to first figure that piece out. And then I believe we owe it to, again, ourselves, to the landlord community and to the tenant community and to Akron to educate everyone across the board exactly what this is going to look like at the end of the day. We have to educate, and what this is going to look like at the end of the day. And that's why I've been so torn and trying to learn more and more. This has been done in 16 other states. It's been done in 16. So I'd like to take the time to study all that and to see the impacts. It's been challenged in court in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh City Council. They challenged it in court and won the challenge. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. But again, like I said, we have kind of committed to going forward with this thing. And so next Monday we will be voting. So everyone, please, I implore everyone to get your questions answered. However, though, I will tell you this, though, we have to have a component, and Mr. Neal is right, and that's the education piece. We have to educate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Mrs. Tamika Rose.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say thank you to Councilman Malik and Councilman Amobian. One of the things that we need to clarify is that the easiest way to end up under the Civil Rights Commission is to actually print that in the paper one of the things that we want to do is to not have it printed in the paper. I think that as time goes on and we work with the landlords and we work with the tenants and educate, the mayor is committed to doing that after the legislation is what, if you guys voted up or down, he's committed to having something of that nature. Prior to COVID, your friend C. Lash, who is on the call too, and I were looking at convening landlords for a landlord symposium to try to see how we could better educate landlords and make sure that they knew what the city has to offer to them. But COVID hit, like literally we were in the meetings in March and COVID hit. So that is something that we have planned to do, but other things came up. But one thing that we cannot do is to continue to allow for discrimination in our city. And we cannot continue to allow for people to have money in hand that is legally tendered and be evicted. So I do implore all of you to actually read the legislation, read all of the emails that legal aid has sent over, that Fair Housing has sent over, and to just look at it without, I told Councilman Neal, I probably would never be a landlord because I don't want to have that risk. But this is the cost of doing business in the city if you're going to be a landlord. And so I think that we need to take an evaluation and really look at making sure that we are not discriminating against, and I'm going to just repeat it from over and over and over again, veterans, elderly, disabled, and single mothers. You're literally discriminating against those individuals if you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Amobian?
The only thing I want to say is that even after we pass it or defeat it, whatever we do next Monday, there's still opportunities for us to work on this. I think Councilman Neal has given us some suggestions, maybe putting some type of council together to continue to work through some of the issues, because I think we need to realize that this is not going to end next week. It's probably just going to be the beginning. But I totally agree with Councilman Fusco. No one on council, I know I don't, want to be a part of any kind of discriminatory practices. And everybody needs to have a place to live if they want housing. And so we just have to figure out how do we do it in our community and do it fairly and try to respect everybody's rights as much as possible.
Thank you, Councilwoman Amobian. Are there any other council members that would like to have an opportunity to speak that have not done so? Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. I wasn't going to speak, but with the last few weeks, and especially tonight with a lot of the comments, obviously we're still here discussing this. With some of the comments made tonight from some of my colleagues, and especially Vice President Fusco, I'm just going to throw out there, and I know Councilman Russ Neal brought up a good point about educating, maybe putting together a committee. I think the first piece, pay to stay, we're not really hearing too much of opposition for that. But the second piece, with the voucher program, I really think we as council going into next week should maybe really consider pulling that item or taking more time, because obviously I think a lot of us are in agreement that we still need to educate ourselves. We need to still educate the public, still have those discussions with the landlords, the community. We're all just now starting to host our community meetings in person with some of the restrictions being lifted because of COVID. These are discussions I think we should still move forward and discuss. Like I said, with the discussions the last couple of weeks and the emails and the phone calls, I think majority of people get the first piece of legislation in regards to pay to stay, but a lot of opposition, a lot of concerns, a lot of education that needs to be done with the other. So I just wanted to chime in and say that for the record. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. Are there any other comments at this time? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you
Second.
so much. We got a motion to adjourn. We have a second. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.